Oh, yeah.
She is? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I've been keeping an eye on you. You didn't know who the masked man was?
Isn't it?
Oh, good thing.
There you go.
You can sit anywhere. You chose. I was here first. It's good. Well, maybe not you, but most people you already with age.
sure my directions is right. How are you?
I know. You didn't have to. At the end, I went, oh,
Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Check that 1, 2. Check 1, 2, 1, 2.
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Check test 1, 2.
He can count to 3.
Hi everybody and welcome. Hopefully you can hear me all right. My apologies if the microphone is not too loud or projecting too far, but thank you so much for joining us here at Parkside Middle School in Manchester. My name is Scott Spradley. Welcome to this neighborhood conversation about a proposed community center here next door. I'll be moderating the dialogue and conversation so that we can hopefully get plenty of feedback and input from those of you who are here and want to speak. As a quick reminder, we do have a sign-up sheet, which I'll grab here in just a minute. For a basic run of show, what we'll do is have essentially a very brief update by Janine Toussaint, who will share with us sort of the timeline. What have we done and where are we at for a little bit of clarification. And then Chris McCracken from Amoskeag Health and Diane Fitzpatrick from the Greater Manchester Boys and Girls Club will just take a couple of minutes as the two main nonprofits who are a part of this conversation to share with us their vision and their hopes for a project such as this one. And then we have a special guest, Sally Stebbins, who is representing the Stebbins family and essentially a lead donor of possible funds for a project of this type. She'd like to say just a few words. At that point then, we'll open it up for Q&A. Like I said, we've got a sign-up sheet, so hopefully you've signed your name. We'll just keep it real simple. If you have questions, we'll do the very best we can to answer your questions as you've delivered them, and some of them have been written down and delivered as well. So we'll do what we can to move through those questions and answer them for you. So that you can be heard. Rusty, raise your hand and say hi. Rusty's in the back of the room with a microphone that's a heck of a lot more powerful than this one is. So he will gladly hold the mic for you while you can ask your questions and make your comments. Just to sort of keep things moving, we'll keep the comments to 3 minutes each so that everybody has a chance to speak. I don't want to be obtrusive. I'm not a traffic cop in this thing. I want this to be a facilitated conversation so everybody feels heard and has time to say something. I'll just hold up a little yellow sheet with about 30 seconds to go in your time, and then I'll hold up the red sheet when your time is up. I'm not going to be militant about it. I'll just sort of nudge and remind you if we're past that time so that, again, we can give everyone an opportunity who wants to say something or wants to ask a question the opportunity to do so. Again, thank you so much for being here. Many thanks to the folks here at Parkside for opening their doors for us to have this conversation. And with that, I think that takes care of all the rules. And also, so that I say it now and we'll say it again in the future, there are opportunities beyond just this moment in time to be able to offer some input to the group having this conversation. And if you haven't already discovered it, there's an email. It's info@markstebbinscommunitycenter.org. So if you've got some thoughts, you have some ideas, you have some feedback, concerns, whatever, please feel free to email. That email is being monitored and they'll get back to you just as quickly as possible. So I just wanted to remind you of that. So without further ado, let me call up Janine to give a brief timeline update of sort of where we are with the project and what the timeline might look like moving forward from this day. Janine?
That's all right. Can everybody hear me? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks everybody for coming tonight. My name is Janine Toussaint, and I'm the project facilitator for the Mark Stebbins Community Center. I really want to say that it's good to see some familiar faces in the crowd tonight, folks who were here at our last meeting and also at our previous community meetings, and it's nice to see some new faces here tonight too. So I just want to welcome everybody, whether this is your first meeting to talk about the Mark Stebbins Community Center or this is your fourth meeting to talk about the Mark Stebbins Community Center. So thank you. We really want to hear feedback from everyone who wants to give it. So, that's why we're here tonight, and we are very sincere about that. So I thought it'd be helpful just to set some context. Sorry, I keep hitting this. So I wanted to share with you what we've done throughout the planning phase of the project, and what are some of our next steps, which is where we really hope to gather feedback and input from you. So, when the idea of this community center on the west side came forward, the first thing we needed to do was to verify that there is a need for services and an interest in providing those services from nonprofit service providers. So that's been a significant part of our work over the last 9 months. 9 months is when we started this whole planning process, 9 months ago. And so to do this, we formed a planning and operations committee, and that has potential service providers and organizations rooted on the west side on it. And we started that in January. We've been meeting regularly since then. Through this committee, we also established a community needs assessment committee. And what we've done through those two committees are that we have gathered and analyzed data about the needs of the west side, some of which is on your tables tonight and on your Q&As. Then we tested that data by asking west side residents about what they see as the needs of the community, because data is data, but what's happening on the ground. And that's really important. Would they use certain services? Or would they recommend their friends or family use these services? This was done through a survey that was translated into 10 different languages. The survey is still open, accessible through our website. We're still continually collecting data. And we also had 3 community meetings in March and April to get feedback as well. The other thing we're doing about figuring out what services to have in the building is we are also partnering with the nonprofit center networks to survey and interview potential service providers who are nonprofits to see if they're interested in participating in the center, if they're available, and if it's feasible for them. So we're in the process right now of gathering and analyzing that data. I wanted you to know that. And the more we delve into this work, the more clear it became that having a community center on the west side would be a benefit, not just for the west side, but for the entire city. So then we had to answer the question, where would this be and what might it look like? So we looked at several different properties, both vacant land and built properties, but there was really no viable options that were easy to access by a walking, bus route, or in a central location. Then at the end of April, we looked at this site, which looked like a promising location. We then had to go through the process of working with the city to see if this was a viable option and follow the city rules and processes for those next steps, which was first to see if Lands and Buildings Committee would even agree to recommend selling the property to us. So as you all know, that did happen at the June 21st Lands and Buildings Committee. But prior to that vote, we didn't know if we were even going to be able to offer to buy the land, which is why as soon as that happened, we reached out immediately to the neighbors, all of you, and we held our first neighborhood meeting on July 11th. And then, as you know, at the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting on July 21st, the Alderman voted to approve the sale of the land to the community center. But I just want to say that that's the first step in this process. And your input is valuable and key as we look at the possibilities going forward. And that's why we're here tonight. That's why we are committed to having lots of avenues to partner with you to find solutions. And we hope you're open to that as well. So I want you to know that everything is still in the planning stages, but here's a base from which we can build upon together. So first we have to start with the mission. Why are we doing this? Who needs these services? We know that there will be 2 anchor tenants, the Boys and Girls Club and Amoscape Health, providing services for children and families. Any other services would also focus just on children and families, and we would like to include a service navigator to help residents navigate to the community services they need, either in the center or through a network outside the center, to help people use community space and maybe have office hours for other service providers. And again, from a mission standpoint, we are absolutely committed to working with the community garden to make sure that it remains and all the benefits that it brings become integrated into the plan and and remains a vital part of all the good that you've built here. So there's the mission. Then there's the building design, which is where getting your input is, one of the places getting your input is really key. And this is going to happen this fall, right? Tonight's the first step. So we don't own this property yet. Mark Stebbins Community Center doesn't own it yet. The automatic vote, again, was just a first step. We still have to go through the planning and zoning boards, as well as do all of our due diligence, which very much involves input from the community. There are several steps in this process going forward, but what we really want to concentrate on is today through February 2023. So that's about the next 6-7 months, because that has to do with us getting a design team together, figuring out what the building might look like, who might be in the building, what the design might look like, what the site might do. We have to do things like look at the soils, the site engineering, permitting, zoning, and planning. So this is a long period that there will be several opportunities for input, and your input is really vital. That's why we're here tonight. So, and after that, if all goes well, then of course, there's the usual steps of construction documents, construction materials, and all of that. But we have to get through this first step first, this next 6 months. So we want you to know that we're going to continue, to work with our nonprofit partners. We're going to continue to work on fundraising. And most importantly, we're going to continue to connect with the neighborhood and the community. And continue to seek your feedback so that we can work together to incorporate that as a priority. And we hope tonight is a good step in that process. And I'm here to answer any other questions. So I just wanted to lay the land for you a little bit with that.
Thank you, Janine. Appreciate it. Next up, I'll call up Chris McCracken from Amskick Health to say a few words, along with Diane Fitzpatrick. So, ladies, the floor is yours.
We're going to do it. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Nothing against Janine, who's got a lovely petite stature. And I apologize, I forgot my reading glasses, but we just both want to share a little feedback and some information. We're not doing this. Can you hear? Is it working? Okay. All right. Oh, you were going to offer me glasses.
175.
That's probably, yeah.
I got 2.
I was going to say, let's go 225. So we completely understand that this process may have felt like a shock to those of you who hadn't heard about it in advance, and that it may have felt like it came out of the blue. And we certainly
tell us, literally. We're just going to read our part, that's all.
So we certainly didn't intend any offense, nor to hurt anybody's feelings or to leave anybody feeling that they weren't engaged in the process. That's why we're here. So we are hoping that this process engages you and offers you the opportunity to give us some constructive feedback about what we can do if we build this to make this a really great resource for this neighborhood, this community. So we're looking forward to hearing your thoughts today.
Absolutely. And, just being in the Boys and Girls Club of Manchester, I see many friends, and just being at this location of the schools, it is vital to have a safe after-school program for our children to go to. And for over 114 years, the Boys and Girls Club has done it. But what I love about what's happening now in our community, you see the synergy between the school district, the Boys and Girls Club, Amskick Health. We're coming together, lifting families like we've never done before. And I know this community center will allow us to do more service to the families that need us most. And it's providing a safe place where children belong, enriching activities, and food access. This is what we do very well. We're doing it great at Union Street, but what we've discovered at Union Street, we ran out of space. Right now, I have over 100 children on a waiting list. I have families calling each and every day. There's no placement. So I just wanted to give you an insight of what drives us to this, to why we want to do this and why it's so critical, is to serve the children in our community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. Next up, I'd like to call up Sally Stebbins for a few words on behalf of the Stebbins family.
Forgot my spike heels.
Me too.
Well, good afternoon and welcome. I'm so happy to see so many faces in the audience, and obviously people are showing interest in the community center, which is all good. As Scott said, I'm Sally Stebbins, and I was married to Mark Stebbins for 43 years. before he passed away on June 17th of last year, very suddenly. Many of you in this room maybe have never heard of Mark or have no idea why the community center is being named after him. So I would like to tell you a little bit about Mark and his strong commitment and his family's strong commitment to the Manchester community. Mark's family are longtime Manchester residents. Both his maternal and paternal grandparents and his own parents were Manchester residents. And Mark and his brother Hank, who's in the audience today, and his sister grew up on Eyre Street and attended local schools. As a young boy, Mark developed a strong interest in swimming and became a member of the Manchester YMCA and swam on the YMCA swim team. In fact, he often had practices and swim meets at the Rock Rimmon Pool, which is just a few blocks away from here. He excelled as a competitive swimmer, winning several New Hampshire state championships, and went on to become an All-American swimmer. His swimming skills actually earned him a scholarship to both the Lawrenceville Prep School in New Jersey and Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire. He credited the Y with giving him many of the life skills he applied through his life: time management, teamwork, perseverance, and hard work. After the beginning of his career in banking in New York City, Mark returned to New Hampshire in 1979. What he didn't tell me at that point was that he was going to bring me up to New Hampshire as his wife. I didn't know that at the time when I first met him, but that's what happened. So he came up to New Hampshire and he joined the family's construction firm. He grew the business from a small local construction firm to the largest design build firm in New Hampshire and one of the largest firms in New England. Mark was a successful business person, but his #1 priority was always our family. We have 3 adult children, their spouses, and 7 grandchildren, ages 9 years to 8 months, and he adored them all. Mark was always grateful for the wonderful supportive upbringing that he had in Manchester, and he felt a very strong need to give back to the local community. For the past 20 years, Mark was a strong advocate of the nonprofit community and gave generously of his time and talents to support their missions and encourage the nonprofits to collaborate. He had a particular passion for making sure that young people in Greater Manchester had opportunities and access to programs like he did as a boy at the Y that support their emotional, educational, and physical growth. Mark's philanthropic legacies include a $1 million donation to the Manchester Boys and Girls Club Camp Foster renovations in addition to their Union Street clubhouse, a $500,000 donation to renovate the Easter Seals headquarters in Manchester, $250,000 to establish Waypoint's Youth Resource Center in Manchester, and $150,000 to the YMCA's Center for Youth and Teen Leadership. As it just so happens, in 2018, Patrick, you can correct me if I'm wrong in this, Granite United Way came up to Mark and me and he says, I have an opportunity that I'd like you to look at Gosler Park Elementary School. And that opportunity was to fund a new program that was at the school called the Leader in Me program, which basically taught the children at the school the 7 principles of how to be an effective leader. Ron Covey's 7 highly effective, help me with the word, 7 highly effective habits of successful people. So Mark and I walked into the building to take our first tour and meet Lori and her staff and the teachers. And as we're waiting for everybody to gather, Mark looked over at a plaque at the wall, and there was the school, Gosler Park Elementary School, built in 1956 by Blanchard Stebbins. And Blanchard Stebbins was Mark and Hank's great-grandfather. And Mark said, oh my God, that's like a sign. I think we have to do something here, Sally, this is a sign. So we met with Lori and we were so impressed with the students that we saw, their level of confidence, their grade scores had gone up, the teachers seemed happy, absenteeism was down, retention of the teachers was up, and the program was a hit. So we immediately decided to fund that program for, I think it was $125,000, and we're so pleased with the results. And I think Lori can attest to that, that it really has been a successful program. Then following year, we were so excited about the program that we extended the program and funded the program for the remaining elementary schools on the west side of Manchester, as well as Parkside Elementary School and West High School, which I think at the time encompassed about 3,200 pupils in total for the whole west side. Our focus has always been, and will continue to be, supporting children, youth, and families. Mark believed that when you strengthen families, you strengthen community. Last page. It is our hope that the Mark Stebbins Community Center will strengthen West Side families and the entire West Side community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. I'll move to the Q&A. So once again, Rusty's in the back. He's got his microphone. So we'll just do the 3-minute thing. I got my sheets here. I'll loosely track so that we can get some feedback and input. Our principal of Parkside, Scott, is actually here. And Scott, would you mind saying just a few words of welcome? And thank you for allowing us to invade your space before the school year starts. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So we just want to say a quick thank you to everyone for coming out. We're really appreciative of hosting, and we're really excited about getting our school year off to a good start. Obviously, one of the things that I think the district prides itself on is kind of the unity of our community around our schools and how the community can step up to support that. That means parents, it means family members, it means friends, it also means community organizations. And we've been really appreciative as a district and as a school specifically for some of the partnerships that we've had with lots of different facets of our community. Our kids really need it, and we need it as staff members supporting them to help them be successful. And then, Parkside specifically is really thankful to the Stebbins family for some of the work they've done here. They've helped us with our careers program in woodworking. They've funded Leader in Me, and through other United Way things with Reading Plus and different things like that. So it really helps us wrap around our kids and provide them academic support, social emotional support, and all the things that they need to be successful, which is really what we depend on as a school, is the help of our community. So thank you all for coming and being a part of this. And we'll do whatever we can to partner with the Boys and Girls Club and Annisque moving forward if we have the opportunity, because a school needs everyone helping, and that's really what we're looking to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Sure. So I'll call the next name on the list, Gary Hammer. And you can feel free to pop right to the back of the microphone so we can hear you clear. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Gary Hamer. I live in Ward 10, currently am school board representative for Ward 10, and just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about why I feel it's important for this project to proceed. Only been on the school board for 8 months. It's been a interesting learning experience. I've learned a lot. I won't take time to tell you everything I've learned, but a couple things relevant to what we're talking about tonight that I've learned. One is the school administration has done a great job in building partnerships across the city, and certainly with the Boys and Girls Club, Mcmahon Health, just to name these two because that's who's relevant in this conversation. I think that it's important from our students' perspective here on the west side that we continue that partnership, we continue to work together. There's just so much opportunity here. The second thing that I've come to learn is that the west side is very underserved. And there's a lot of examples of that, and clearly one that's part of this is with services. The families and children on the west side right now, in order to attend the Boys and Girls Club after school or seek health services, have to find a way to travel across the city. And that's not as easy as many of us have that opportunity to do that very easily. But a lot of these students and families don't have that. And being able to utilize those services here, right next door to the school, will be a very important advancement in trying to reduce the lack of services here on the west side. And lastly, I'll say that I see this as a great opportunity. I think when I spoke that night at City Hall, I talked about it being a great opportunity because there is no way in any shape or form that the city would ever be able to do anything like this for us here on the west side. And this is coming through private funding, coming through people who really want to make a difference to our students here and our families here on the west side.
Sorry.
I am the Parkside Garden Coordinator. I am here today to read a letter from Ara, who is the president of Manchester Grove. In addition to being the Parkside Garden Coordinator, I'm also a dad of a 12-year-old that's currently growing 3 giant pumpkins at the garden, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old that love playing grocery store in the brand new shade structure that we put countless volunteer hours into. So here's Ara's letter. Hello. Thanks for allowing the time for me to address you folks and taking time to express all your thoughts to this proposed community center. I'm fortunately away enjoying other regions of our state at the moment, but know we try our best to improve our backyards throughout the city all the time. I may be a figurehead to this garden, but there are many involved, some of which aren't happy at all with the potentials that could occur. But when I was first approached, I thought initially that this was going to be a youth center, and then it changed to an all-around community center. We offered to developers to meet on site, but was told maybe premature. Now that the city has agreed in principle to sell this surplus land, I reached out again to be assured that once developing of the actual plan, that we would have some input in the actual layout and hopefully not disturbing the community garden. Just to be clear, we're a large group, having spent countless hours to develop not only the garden, but coordinating a brand new walking path, linking areas to and from the school, a natural sitting area with granite benches, and developed a pollinator garden with students from Parkside. We cleaned up the triangle piece across the street from the garden. We recently even had one of our young gardeners named the red-tailed hawk that circles around and watches from the perch. We became a space for people to enjoy all it has to offer. We also took great lengths to learn the history of this site and hopefully pass forward as we discuss this area. We add education to what we do, so please engage the educators that service the school of this area. We have already created a community space here at Parkside, engaging the schools, neighborhood, and people from all over. And I guess the hope is that what we started and make it even more out of it. That was a little messy. And for that reason, I want to support them for making things better. As caretakers of this space, and if there's to be new caretakers that want to develop even further, my hope is that we have a voice in making this even a better project. So I have my eyes on this project, and if ultimately this means the garden must be moved, or even that will be one, it's a little messy, I'm sorry guys. I'm sure we'll be looked at seriously, but do what we want is for us to decide together. Manchester Grows wants to help support and help create spaces throughout the city, and if you spent time volunteering with us, you'll find that it takes all of us to make this entire city a better place. Please support our latest projects, which is a free vegetable kiosk here at Parkside and a pop-up farmers market that I believe is on Spruce Street. Which will be held on 8/25 and 9/8. And then he goes on to thank everybody. Ara Tamzarian, president of Manchester Grows. I'll also say that we have about 50 beds at the garden. Many of them are shared between neighbors. It's a lot to manage one of these beds. We ourselves have put together these beds with help from SNU, help from people that are doing their community service on probation. You know, we have truly represented this community, every part of this community. Anyone that's in this community has come and helped us. I don't even know if there's anybody from outside of the west side that has helped with this project. We have handicap beds, we have compost that the volunteers have paid for themselves, which has been thousands and thousands of dollars. We have the brand new shade structure, as I said. I think that's about it. But thank you guys.
All right. What questions we can answer, we're going to try to answer tonight. There's some questions that we probably won't be able to, but this is part of the gathering input, right? So thank you. I've spoken with Ara, and I've known Ara for a long time too. Great person, and we are absolutely committed to working with the community gardeners, and we do not want to undo what you have done. That's not our point at all. And so, we're committed to figuring out how to integrate that into the site going forward. That's why this next phase is really important. This planning phase, right, from now until February, because we're going to have the experts on teams to really help to figure out what does that mean and how do we do that and how do we do that well. So the site plan actually includes it. So
it includes it where it currently is.
I don't have the answer to that right now. Barry, do you?
The question was, is it included where it is?
Yep.
That's just unknown at the moment until all of the considerations are put in the mix and the site is designed and engineered.
Yeah. Did you hear that? Did everyone hear that? This is Barry Brensinger. He is one of our volunteers. He is an architect. He is not the architect for the project, but he is an architect who is helping us up to this point with some of those questions. All right. Okay, thank you.
Next up is Steve McMahon.
Good evening. My name is Steve McMahon. I'm on the board of the Mark Stebbins Community Center. But mainly, for the past 37 years, I've served on the board of the Boys and Girls Club here in Manchester. I've had the privilege of observing what the Boys and Girls Club means to these kids that we've been serving for all these years. It is an incredible opportunity for the kids to come with a safe place to go, where they're mentored and they can develop into strong adults. There's a formula to the Boys and Girls Club that has been proven for years. As Diane said, we've been over on the west side, over on the east side for 114 years. And the formula is this: you put up a building, you provide a safe location, bricks and mortar to take care of the kids, you provide a wide variety of opportunities for programming, both educational activities and so forth. But the key is the third piece of the formula, and that is the staff. And the staff is running these programs, and when a kid gets involved in these different programs, they develop an interest, they develop a relationship with that staff member, and very often that staff member becomes a mentor that makes all the difference in their life. All the speaking I've done on behalf of the club to raise money, to expand our club and so forth, I'd love to mention that I believe that every kid needs an adult they don't want to disappoint. And I have observed through my 37 years with the Boys and Girls Club, and in my years as a basketball coach in the past, that is a critical element of a kid's development. 12 years ago, we finished a total expansion renovation of the Boys and Girls Club in Manchester on Union Street. It allowed us to begin serving up to 500 or 600 kids a day. From that moment on, it's been a dream of mine. When Diane joined us 7 years ago, 8 years ago, whenever it was, we've been talking about providing that opportunity to kids on the west side. As a prior speaker said, we have witnessed how this community over here is very underserved. And we felt bringing a club here and making that opportunity for the kids, the same opportunity that's been on the east side and very accessible for kids there, it could be very accessible here. If that program can come here, the Boys and Girls Club program can come here and help these kids, it's going to be a win-win-win. It's a win for the kids, obviously, because they get to have a safe place to go, they have that mentor relationship, they get to develop and hopefully get on a path to being a successful adult. It's a win for their families, obviously, because they know their kids are in a safe place, they know they're with loving, caring adults, and it's a win for the community because the kids aren't running around, they're part of a program, they're being developed into being stronger adults. It really is a quality of life situation. If I had my way, we'd have 5 or 6 clubs spread around this city. But my dream for the last 15 years has been to get it over here, and I hope that the community can be part of it and help these kids have a better future.
Are we doing questions on that?
No, you say this. Jason Kahn.
I'm all set. My question is answered.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Right here.
Okay.
I'm not going to take 3 minutes. I'm here to mention 2 eternal laws that have never been broken in the history of mankind. The first one is from Robert Heinlein, and it's called Cheop's Law, named after the pyramids. No public works project in the history of mankind has ever been built on time or under budget. And the second law is Awesome Pete's corollary. That's me. Take the initial proposed cost of the project, move the decimal point once to the right, and that's the final cost, okay? You're talking $170 million for the final cost. That law has never been broken. Look at the Big Dig in Boston. Proposed $3.7 billion? Oh, sorry, $37 billion. Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant, $900 million? $4.5 billion, but they only built half of it. So, remember these numbers.
Next up, Dan O'Neill.
Good evening. I'm here tonight in support of the Mark Stebbins Community Center, and the intended use is the West Manchester Boys and Girls Club along with the MSK Health. There is no better organization in the city to help fill the needs of the young people of West Manchester than the Manchester Boys and Girls Club. Back in the late 1970s and in 1980s, my brothers and I were members of the then Manchester Boys Club. My wife's family lived off Mass Road in West Manchester for many years. My brothers-in-law were members of the then Penardville Boys Club, which was part of the Manchester organization. And they also attended Camp Foster, which is part of the Boys and Girls Club organization. I am the parent of a son who has been a member of the Manchester Boys and Girls Club for many years and also goes to Camp Foster in the summertime. And I had the chance tonight to meet Sally Stebbins for the first time, and I have to thank her because she and Mark in spirit, has touched my son's life twice today at Union Street and at Camp Foster. So thank you very much, Sally, for that. As a parent, I regularly see the great work done by the outstanding and diverse staff at the Union Street Clubhouse. From the Learning Center to the STEM Lab to gym time to even feeding the kids breakfast and dinner, the Manchester Boys and Girls staff provides the services needed of our young people. They do this currently in partnership with organizations such as MSK Health and Manchester Mental Health. Today, just as an example, I think Gary touched on this a little bit, there's no West or Southwest Manchester Little League. Those young people play at South Little League off South Willow Street if they can get rides. There's no West Side Youth Soccer program. Those young people play it in the South program or the North program if they can get rides. I've seen young people this summer walking home to West Manchester from Union Street after they returned from a full day at Camp Foster. We need to do better for the young people of West Manchester and their families, and I believe the Mark Stebbins Community Center will help fill a needed void for the young people of our city. Thank you.
Brian Evan.
My name is Brian Pepin. I live right in the gray house right in the corner. A couple questions I have for the Stebbins. What do you guys think about veterans, combat veterans? Do you guys even care about us? Or is it just about the kids? I mean, I'm gonna have to be affected by all the construction. The already hard time I getting in my driveway after work. What about if you have to blast and drill? Have you thought about the silica dust that might be in there? The health hazard that's gonna prevent to the whole entire neighborhood? Where are you gonna put all the equipment, the heavy construction equipment that's gonna be coming in and out? What about all the kids that have to go through all that construction area? Now we have a hazard. What about the liabilities of you guys drilling and blasting and destruction? My structure, my home, now may be affected because you guys want to put this community center. Has anyone ever thought about this? Yes, it's a good thing, a community center for the children. My family has been in this neighborhood for over 75 years. I've heard a lot of numbers going around, 40 years this, 40 years that. 75 years my family's been on Winter Street, in the neighborhood. No community services since then. Never an issue. Now you guys want to put one in. My niece and nephew, Section 8, will they have a free ride to use these facilities without any question? Or are you guys going to push them away because they can't afford to go to this community center that's supposed to be nonprofit? These are just some of the questions I have, is how are you going to deal with the traffic, the laydown, the construction? How long is it going to take? How long do I have to be affected? And I say me, but not just me, the rest of the individuals also living here. I work in a very, very dangerous job. What if I can't get the rest and relaxation I need for my job? It affects my job and it becomes very dangerous. I haul explosives. If I can't get good rest and relaxation, my job becomes more dangerous than it already is. And these are just some of the things I think of every day. Is I see these flyers come out, it's like, how and why does my life have to be affected? I bought this house last October. I closed in October. And I saw two gentlemen standing in that field. And I already knew as soon as I saw them, because of my military training, the hypervigilance, I knew they were not good for this community when I first saw them there. I didn't even know their names. I already knew they were bad. So at that point, I realized what's going on. Now you guys can take away the green belt I have in my backyard. The community garden is going to get destroyed. I know you guys have to take it down. Where are you going to put a lay down yard for supplies? Yeah, you guys might give them a 10 by 10 later, but kind of why I bought the house, because nice community center right next door. But think about your kids. Well, that D8 Doge is rolling through that yard. Hopefully nothing happens to them. And my structure, of course, you know, before you guys start building, I'll do a walkthrough, make sure that my structure is good and nothing happens to it. I don't want to put insurance claims or crazy things. But that's pretty much it for me.
Brian. Brian, thank you. You obviously asked a lot of questions, especially around infrastructure timeline and project impact. So
I have some answers if he wants answers to some of the questions.
Okay. So do you want to connect with him immediately after?
Sure.
Brian, this is Tracy Pelton. She's a part of the sort of project planning at this point. And
Okay. Well, she can answer questions, I'm sure everyone.
Yeah, we would probably all want to.
That's fine. Yeah, if you'd like to
Sure.
jump in with a few of these.
So I'm Tracy Pelton. I've been with ProCon now for almost 8 years, and I work with Mark Stebbins. Mark Stebbins cares very much for veterans. We have been giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to Easter Seals and Veterans Count for years. I'm just answering that question. What do you care about our veterans? We care very much. We take care of our veterans that work for us. We give hundreds of thousands every single year to veterans in the community, Veterans Count and other things like that. I serve on the board of the Easter Seals. So it's a big focus of ours. What Sally and the Stebbins family give to are United Way, Boys and Girls Club, Easter Seals, the YMCA, and the Waypoint, right? And that affects, a lot of those affect veterans. So I wanted to answer that. In regards to building on an occupied site, like this, a school site, we built 15 projects at Gordon College and 13 at Merrimack College on occupied campuses. We are, not that we're going to design or build this, but we are going to ensure safety, less impact as much as possible. That's part of the planning process, and we've done it for 87 years, right? That's what we've done, and that's what been our business. We will work with you to ensure the least amount of impact possible. So I want you to understand that we do value you, and we want to help you to make this the least impact it possibly can be. That's my answers. I'm sorry. That's all I had.
Thank you. Next up is Patrick Tufts.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick. I've been with the United Way here in Manchester for the last 16 years, and there's lots of voices here tonight, and they're all important. There's also probably thousands of voices that aren't here tonight, and those are a lot of the voices that I get to hear through United Way. And Sally stole my story about visiting Goslar, but when we brought Leader and me to Goslar, and then over here to Parkside, and then to West, that was hundreds of voices and hundreds of needs that were met right here in this community by the Stebbins family, by the not-for-profits in this community. When we brought Reading Plus to these schools, same thing. Again, hundreds, if not thousands of voices on the West Side whose lives were made better because of the not-for-profits that are here to do for this community. They're not here to do to this community. They're here to do for this community. One of the other numbers, and I'll provide it to the planning team, is one of the projects we run at United Way is the 211 New Hampshire helpline. And we got 500,000 calls for help last year. And the calls for help that we get at 211, a large percentage of them come from the city of Manchester. People are begging for the services that these nonprofits are offering. Begging. We get hundreds of calls every single day. Where can I get safe before and after school childcare? Where can I get access to healthcare services? Where can I get help understanding my finances? And in communities I work with all across the state, one of the other things that we're hearing is, how can I get those more local so I don't have to get in a car and go across the city or go to another city? So, as this conversation moves forward, I think it's important to remember all those other voices too, and that there are thousands of people who depend on organizations like these who have 100 years of service of doing the right thing for this community. So this isn't a government project, this isn't a private project. These are some of the most trusted not-for-profits in this community who have been doing the right thing for this community for 100 years. And I've had the privilege of walking through both Goslar and Parkside to see the residual effect of these contributions in this private engagement and involvement in this community. And all I ever hear is, we need more. We need more help, we need more assistance, we need more local programming. So I'm not here to say anything that, against what other folks are saying. I'm just saying, in my 16 years of serving this community, these are the things that I hear. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Colin McVoy. I'm a volunteer at Amherst Health, and I'll be real brief. I hear a lot of people concerned about government rolling through this program and government spending, and I'm one of those people that would be concerned about that, but I'm scratching my head that this program seems to be like the New Hampshire tradition of doing things through not-for-profits and private organizations, and I hope those people that are critical and worried about government spending going crazy on this program realize that the services being provided by Amherst Health and by the Boys and Girls Club are services that are going to need to be done. And if we have a chance for the private, not-for-profit, philanthropic communities to come together and do this, let's take it. Otherwise, these services are going to get done in emergency rooms, police stations, hospitals, and we're going to be paying for them through our taxes. So I'm taking the approach that this is prudent spending of allowing the not-for-profits with the experience that they have, both at the Boys and Girls Club and at Amherst Health, of providing services that this community doesn't need, it demands. It's going to have to happen, either in your ER rooms at CMC or at the Elliott, uninsured, and you pay for it that way. So if you have a choice, I think we've got a really good opportunity here. I think we ought to take it.
Eric Randolph.
Hi. So my family and I moved here 15 years ago in 2007, which I know doesn't compete with 75 years. Excuse me. And when we had our first child in 2009 and we were starting to get ready for school age, we had people say to us, well, you can't send your kids to school on the West Side. And I was a little confused and I kept asking her, well, what do you know? And we kept hearing the same thing, which was, well, obviously you have to move to Bedford, or you gotta find a charter school or maybe look at a private school. And our response to that was, yeah, we're gonna stick with the school down the street. And so we sent both of our children to Gosser Park, and now one is in Parkside. And they've had a pretty incredible experience, but what we've learned through interacting with teachers, interacting with the administration, who's been fantastic, is that there's so many things that they are dealing with, so many things that come into the school that are beyond what they are capable of handling. That they're asked to do so many things that are beyond, I know certainly beyond what any teacher that I ever had growing up was asked to do. And so when there's an opportunity for the support of something like a community center that's right here, it's a gift. And it seems like an opportunity that would be a huge mistake to let be anywhere else other than within walking distance of these two buildings. And I've witnessed firsthand the way the Leader in Me program has transformed Gosser Park and watched what that partnership looks like and the way that the teachers and the administrators at Gosser have, they're driving that program but are supported by this philanthropic effort. And so it's, when I first heard that we might have the chance to have this here, I got really excited. And having been at this, I think my third of these meetings, I absolutely understand the concerns of the neighbors because you didn't ask to have your backyard disrupted or didn't expect it.
Nobody did. We were told is the issue.
Okay.
But I also, I understand that the team has taken every step according to the expectations of the city and taken every step that they can to make sure that it is a process that involves everybody from the community. And you know, also as a family that has had a plot in the community garden, I understand the labor of love that is, and absolutely would not want to see it taken away. But it sounds like the garden is a huge consideration in the planning, and I think, you know, as long as the community stays involved and holds the planning team to that, I think that the garden will be able to continue to be in that space as a part of a larger project that is really going to serve the West Side and the kids and the families that need it.
Sorry, where do you live?
Carly, Eric, thank you. Carly, your turn.
Where do you live, though? Are you here?
What's up? Yeah, just a walk down from Gosser Park.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, and it doesn't matter.
Sorry, actually, hi, I'm Carla Garrick, and I live just up the hill here. For the principal of the school, I would like to let you know there are homeless people living in tents on school property right behind my fence, and we have video of people shooting up right here on the park in the past week. So, yeah.
Have you notified anyone?
I think we did put a request in, yeah.
Great.
So, first of all, no one wants to go to war here, right? But I think it's really important for people to understand where our frustration is coming from and why we do not trust you. You guys did us dirty. We all know it in this room. And now we have to pretend like that didn't happen. And I'm unwilling to do that. If this is truly going to be a community center, and if I lose this battle, my final request to the Stebbins family will be, do not put the word community on this building. Because you cannot build a community center where you literally ignored the people who live here, the community, the people who built the garden, the people who saw the need in our neighborhood and took matters into our own hand and did something cool. Then people just came and they were like, oh, we're just gonna do this thing and not tell you until it's too late. And now everyone here who testified, by the way, not one of you live in this neighborhood except the last guy. You know, honestly, when I go to vote and I see the Kobe quotes, that fills my heart with joy too. We actually all have the same goals. But here is what I'm telling you. You cannot take one group of people and try and benefit another group of people and literally ignore the people you are asking the sacrifice from. I don't want want junkies in my backyard. I want a vegetable garden. I want to teach kids how to cook and feed themselves and be able to walk to the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, we're doing full equivalencies here. No one here is anti the Boys and Girls Club. No one here is anti anything anyone's trying to do. We all love kids. We all want to see them succeed. But you cannot plant a poison seed and expect something good to grow from it. No one here, and my request in the paper was, can someone at least apologize? You guys literally just got up again and just pretended like we're not going to discuss the issue of why here, and that needs to be addressed. I have a long list of questions. I submitted them, and I appreciate, thank you, the extra time. But genuinely, we also want good for the people, but this is not how you do it. I think we need to find another site and start from there.
Thank you. Thank you. You know what? This community center sounds great, and of course, that's going to be followed with a but. And the but is, we have a huge, two big schools here that are empty after 3 p.m. We have a high school that they're threatening to close all the time because it's largely empty. And we have a builder saying, no, we must build. We have a big green space, and they're saying that our 40,000 square foot building is not going to take very much of that green space. We have a community movement that started the garden and would like to keep it, and we're told, don't worry, it'll be there, we just don't know how. And you say, we need a place for people to play soccer and baseball. Let's build a 40,000 square foot building for them to play soccer and baseball in. And you said that you went through and jumped through all the hoops and did everything legally, and I'm sure you did. But you still didn't tell us about it until a few weeks ago. This was a done deal. That's what people are bitter. Talk to us. Really talk to us. Show us why the high school can't be used for this. Show us why this room we're standing in right now can't be used for all of these wonderful things. And you'll have us on your side. But just say, hey, listen up, you hayseeds. We're here to do you good. That isn't going to work. That's just going to cause bitterness. Bring me over to your side.
Yep.
Talk to me, with me, not at me. I went to City Hall to listen to all of the aldermen who live somewhere else, not for this district, go for this. Slow down. Take the time. Help me know what's going on. Don't say we're absolutely committed to something we don't have a plan for yet. Thank you.
Hi, Patrick Binder. I live on the west side. I also volunteer. We led a park cleanup down Conner Street the other day. Came down to the edge of this park, the edge of the Parks Department, I guess, former property. I don't know if it's been sold yet. Picked up 2 needles there. The rest of Conner Street was pretty good, just trash. Just want to put that out there. You know, I'm a guy that's out here actually trying to do stuff on the ground. When we started We Heart West, I went door to door with flyers. I talked to people in the neighborhoods I was going to go do cleanups in and see if I could get them involved. From what I understand, no one's even gone door to door to anyone around here. I talked to the neighbors. I went and asked some of them. They said, nope, no one's been by my front door. No. I just heard about it after it was a done deal. It's really, this is what I want to get down to. Nothing has ever looked more disingenuous to me in my life on its face. When people don't go up to the people that they're talking to, that they shouldn't talk to, just say something, just say hi. We have this idea. It seems super disingenuous to the point where I've lost all faith in this as a project, and it's not going to be won back. Like, I just think that it's actually ill will now. And I don't have any evidence for this. I just have that there's such a lack of good faith efforts here to do what neighbors should be doing, to do what people that actually want to help someone should be doing. I actually want to help these neighbors. So I've been in there trying to get them involved. The opposite was done here. It really does feel like a government program to do something to a neighborhood, not for a neighborhood. And so I'm wondering where the money is. Where's the money that makes this all happen, that makes us all click for the people that are doing this to a neighborhood? Again, I've already lost faith in this. I think it was so disingenuous from the beginning, you're never going to win me back over. That's just, anyone that was in their right mind, wanted to do something for people, would have done it genuinely, would have talked to those people, would have done this. So easy to do, to walk door to door. It's like you're going across town to neighbor to neighbor. You literally just go to like the 20 houses here, the 5 there, maybe like 8 over there, and you knock on their door and you say, "Hi, my name's Bob, I want to talk to you about this thing we were thinking about doing." And the fact that nobody out of the, man, I saw a page, it looked like you had like 100 people that are just volunteering in this group, let alone the people being paid to work on it. Not a single person could do that? Bullshit. That's just bullshit. We don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Hello, folks. Mcmahon Ford, Ward 10 resident. I had to take notes because I was actively listening to everyone. But I wanted to just let everyone know, moved here roughly 12 years ago to do City Year, which hopefully folks know what that is. They work in the schools, and returned back to New Hampshire with my beautiful small family to the west side. And I work with Europe. And Europe is a college access career pathway program that works in the high schools currently. And I'm also on the Parker Varney PTG, so I'm an active parent. And so I just want to make it known that I do have a connection to Boys and Girls Club and MSK Health. We partner with Boys and Girls Club because they're a great organization. And this past summer, our summer program actually offered MSK Health mental services to our students for free for the students. And so I do have that connection, so I want to make that known. And I also want folks to look around the room. I can honestly say I'm the only black man in the room, and I'm not the only black person who lives on the west side.
I'm African American.
Good job. And other folks who look like me or similar tones of skin. And so I just want to make that known that the services I believe that the center will be providing will most likely benefit folks who look like me and folks with similar skin tones. And not to say that all of the concerns, especially what the gentleman said about connecting with the community, especially those who live right here in the vicinity of the center, how they feel about it. Obviously, as a Ward 10 resident, I live on the other side of the Walgreens, and so that is not a factor for me, right? But the center itself would be beneficial to Ward 10, and I do support the center, and I do agree with the statements that the gentleman, the vet, the woman who talked about the garden, that communication with residents is so important. And as a person who does not look like most folks in Manchester, communication is key. And I would suggest the planning folks, whoever needs to, I think someone said it, an apology is not difficult. You just have to mean it. And I think that is something that should be considered, just for the thought of reconciliation of the community members. If the folks who live right here dislike the community center, that's a huge problem. But I know the students who I work with at Parker Varney, the kids that I work with at West are going to need this center. And so what I've learned coming back to Manchester is the West Side is feisty. What you hear now is just a small voice of folks raising their voice. So recognize the West Side is feisty, and more people will come out. Even if they support the center, they're gonna say, no, that's really effed up that you did that to these folks in this community. And I'm gonna support my neighbors and not support this center. And I'm one of those folks, but I do support the center. But I also support my neighbors because I think it's important. One, because you may sometimes have to go get sugar or salt from a neighbor and you don't want to piss them off. And then so my 2 questions that I have is, it says it's going to be a nonprofit, which means there's going to be an executive director, and I know there's board members who are on the board of the center. What does that look like and how will they be selected? And then it says that Boys and Girls Club and MSK Health are the two anchor services. What about other services that this community needs, including food insecurity? And someone talked about drug addiction. That is a very important issue. And then things that I know for certain for students on the west side is laundry and coming to school with dirty clothes and things like that. Are those also included in the services, actual services, and not pseudo services provided at this center? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So yes, this is going to be, well, this is a nonprofit organization right now. Excuse me. And so we do have a board of directors. There likely will be an executive director. We haven't gotten that far. We're not in that governance phase yet. So right now we're in the planning phase. So I don't have an answer to how that will be, how the board will be selected, but we definitely want to keep you informed about that, and that's something we're going to be figuring out as we move forward. So thank you for asking that question. So, and as far as the services go, Chris and Diane, do you want, or Chris or Diane, do you want to?
Thanks so much for the questions. We have a group called the Nonprofit Center Network that is working with some of the local agencies and nonprofits to select, to see about their interest in participating. We have gone through a process to kind of striate, and some of that information is in your packet. Some of the areas that were identified as high need or high risk in the community, including food insecurity. The idea of a laundry service availability was actually brought up by a young man. It was somebody's child that was at the last meeting. So those are the kind of creative ideas that we'd like to hear about. So we hope, no decisions have been made yet. We are talking to all of the agencies to see who has the capacity to do it. At this time, some agencies do not, and who would be available to potentially participate in some of those services that we've deemed are in that area of high need. But one of the reasons that we were here tonight is to also hopefully hear, are there particular areas such as the laundry service that are ideas that you think would be beneficial, or that you hope would be considered as, or that we could look to find a way to meet some of those needs. So that's one answer. I don't know what else you'd like to add.
Currently we're seeing more and more kids needing access to the laundromat. That was one great example, and it's heartbreaking to see that. We have a washer and dryer at the Boys and Girls Club. That's a huge access for families. I keep seeing that sign out back and talking with you. I'm doing my best to talk with you. You're asking for an apology. My background is not building community centers. My background is education and supporting children. I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have. I'm so grateful for everyone that's spoken up. I sincerely apologize. I do. You can shake your head. I'm doing the best. I'm following the guidance of people that have guided us. I'm doing this with great intention.
I'm not asking for an apology.
I'm sorry.
No, other people did.
This is not a debate.
This is my moment to say, we will continue to work with all of you. Our motive is to support families and children.
Continue would mean you would work with us.
Sir, I'm not going to ask you again. This is not a debate.
Okay, you can tell me to leave and I'll leave.
I don't want you to leave. Next up is Lori Upham.
Hi, everybody. Lori Upham, the principal over there at Goswell Park School. I've been there for 15 years, and you've heard a lot of talk tonight about the Leader in Me program that Mark Stebbins and Sally Stebbins and the Granite United Way have helped to fund. And the difference that it's made for the kids in our school. Principal, well, not Principal Ransdell anymore, but he was the principal here, and after we started the Leader in Me program, he could pick out the kids who came from Goswell Park School as opposed to the other two schools. Not that there's anything wrong with the other ones, but the things that they learned through the Leader in Me and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Kids has been really good for them. They need role models in leadership. And so they take on leadership roles all day long. There's leadership roles in their classrooms, there's school leadership roles, and the kids have to apply for jobs, so we're trying to teach them, some real world skills. and they just need some positive role models. So we're so grateful for what's been done for us. We've been a community school for about 14 years. So we have had help from the Manchester Health Department. We've had help from Granite United Way. We've had help from Manchester Mental Health. Amoskeag Health has been working in our schools for the last 4 years. They've given us 2 extra social workers and a community health worker that helps to connect our families with medical help when they don't know where to go. So we do have a lack of resource on the west side, and as a school, we're always trying to look for ways to help our families. And so we did install washer and dryer over in the portable, and we do take care of kids when their clothes come in dirty, or you can just tell they have absences. Our social workers call, why haven't why haven't been in school? We get to the root problem. We want our kids to be in school. We want them to feel good about themselves, and we want them to be able to learn and be happy in our environment. So, habit 5 is seek first to understand and then to be understood. So I am hearing what the neighbors are saying, and I understand it. I don't live in your neighborhood. I live here more than I do at my own house. I can tell you that. And I see what happens here at night, and I see what happens early in the morning. I've seen all of the backpacks that we find on the playground. I get all of that. I've seen the homeless people that we call the police for. It's a tough area, but our families deserve to have a safe place for their kids to go to for before school care and after school care. They don't have transportation. I would personally be walking these kids to their after school program so they get there safely. I'd pick them up in the morning so they can get to school safely. It's about the kids. And I understand, I really do. I don't know, do you know Kate Hogan? Do you guys know Kate Hogan? She's an 84-year-old woman who started her own school in New York City. And she's still working at school. She works at Galter in the garden. She has a gardens for us, and she works at the garden here. And one of her biggest things was, please don't let them have anything to do with the garden. And I had told Diane that I would come, that I was in support of the program. But when Kate told me that the garden was going away, I stopped. I had to reach out, and I had to ask. I need to know what's going to happen to that garden, because it's important to so many people because of all the hard work that they put into it. And I've been assured over and over again that nothing's going to happen. I don't know where to go and put it. I don't know any of that. I'm just, listen, here's the thing. Hey, here's the thing. Here's what I think needs to happen, just like my friend over there said. I think that the abutters who have all of the questions need to sit in a room with all of the people who are making the decisions or the planning, and you have to talk, but you have to listen to each other first. I'm seeing people trying to say, I'm sorry, and then other people just saying, shaking their head or, saying no. But we have to listen to each other. This is what we try to tell our kids too. We can't get anywhere if you're not listening. So I guess my big ask is, yes, of course, I'm going to support the community center because I really do feel like it's the best thing for our kids. Now, as far as the neighborhood goes and people who own homes here, I really think Sally and Diane and Barry, whoever is in charge, we need to grab these people. And we really do need to just have a conversation with no cameras, no nothing, and just listen to each other, but each side has to promise to listen. That's all. I think we could do this together. I feel your pain, I do. I don't live here, but I do live there. And I've had hundreds of kids that I've served, and I want the best for them, but I also want you to be heard, and I want your feelings to be respected and listened to see if there's some happy ground that we can get to, so that, like one of you said, talk with us. And I think they're trying to talk with you, but I think it's very contentious right now. And so we need to kind of say, all right, we're going to take a step back, and we need to just sign up. Who wants to come to the meeting? This whole group over here, pick a time that's convenient for everybody else, and I think we just need to practice to have it 5. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to talk at you at all.
To that end, I think for all the folks who I have emails for everyone except for one, and I can catch up with him immediately afterwards to at least be able to facilitate that kind of an outreach. So, Lori, wherever you just went, thank you. And I think that can be certainly exercised as a continued conversation. Next up is Michelle Shepard.
Thank you. I'm Michelle Shepard, and I represent the Granite YMCA branch of Manchester that you know very well over on Cannock Street. We are honored that Sally recognized Mark's involvement with the YMCA and what it meant to him as a youth, going through our aquatics programs, becoming a swimmer, a leader, and also someone who supported our communities and our nonprofits. We don't have a stake in the ground right now. We are committed to this project and being a partner in the project, but we're not acknowledged as partners yet because we've been working on our own transitions. And having time to have conversations about transitions and difficult subjects is something that I think was just echoed here very clearly, that it needs to happen in the best way possible. But we can only do that when we're willing to listen and to know that the intentions here, the Stebbins family, and the work that Mark and Sally have done in their businesses and their family is all about doing the right thing for people, for children, for families, and individuals. And I know them very well, and they have been great supporters of our organization, and they believe in doing the right thing. They believe in core values of honesty, respect, caring, responsibility. And I know you can stand by that with them. It may not feel like that at the moment, but I hope that you'll give them the chance, because we are committed to bringing Y services to this side of the city and being here beyond the presences we currently have in schools and camps. We believe in this movement. We believe in this opportunity to serve the community.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, neighbors of the West Side. I have lived on the West Side all my life, and I'm 68. My mother lived on the West Side until she was 88 and passed. My father's father lived on Putnam Street, 2 blocks away. My grandfather came down from Canada in the 1800s and lived on the West Side. A lot of you knew West Siders, and what you're not seeing is a degree of respect and dignity that the Stebbins family is bringing to us on the West Side, bringing a multi-million-dollar free institution to service our youth, the Boys Club, and other boys and girls clubs. My sister is a graduate of the Girls Club. I am a graduate of the Boys Club. And a lot of kids at the Boys Club were poor kids. I was a West Sider. I was probably poor. I felt we were poor, like all of you folks. You had enough. In the old days, a middle-class worker could have enough for the family. It's not the same anymore. But I went to the Boys Club with a whole lot of Center City kids. And let me tell you, a lot of those kids had neighbors that never made it. Probably never made it out of high school and then probably out of life today. But a lot of those kids did. They were in the Manchester Muchachos, Boys and Girls Club, Drum and Bugle Corps. Some of them served as aldermen. Many of them are chairmen of social committees in the city. And they're all been successful because of the Boys Club. Now let's talk about respect for the West Side. We can chuckle a little bit about it, but it's no secret. This was the Franco-American neighborhood. We spoke French. My neighbors spoke French. I never wanted to speak French. Who wants to be a foreigner, right? But we were considered as foreigners in the city, just like the Greeks who came after us were considered as foreigners. The Irish before us were considered as foreigners. Couldn't even get a job in Boston. So we are the West Side. Now a lot of you new folks here came here because these were multi-family homes, a good place to buy, rent 2 apartments, and live on the first floor. That's what our forefathers did. of a Franco-American speaking forefather. Your house, sir, was owned by a Frenchman, I'll tell you, for sure.
My family is French.
There you go. There you go. Bonjour. So, I grew up in Manchester, went to parochial school, but in 1966, the city of Manchester took a big step forward, as they're trying to do right now. We built 3 new junior high schools. 3. That opened in September. Hillside, Parkside, and Southside. I was here the very first year that Parkside opened. I left parochial school, my parents' support, came here as an 8th grader, and was in the very first graduating class here in this neighborhood. I had to get a ride across town to go to the Boys Club. It would have been really convenient to have a Boys and Girls Club here. It really would be. It's going to be good for your neighbors. It's going to be good for your tenants. It'll bring more respect to the neighborhood. And again, the Stebbins family, Hank Stebbins is in the back. I can't thank you enough. With all of the opportunities that you had to honor your brother, you really sought out a little service area, an area that needed help. Yes, Scott is trying to shut me up. All right, all right. I will depart, but I think we should all think about it, and I think it's going to be good for your neighborhood, for your property values, for your tenants and your children.
Thanks, Scott. Let me start by saying, on behalf of the Stebbins family, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we didn't communicate with you more. I'm sorry that you feel threatened by this proposal. What we hope to do, and what we still hope to do, is to find a way to help kids. That's the real nature of what we're doing. My father was on the board of directors of the Boys and Girls Club. I went to the Boys and Girls Club, worked there when I was in high school, and was on the board of directors. We've seen what the Boys and Girls Club can do for children. We've seen the kids that I played basketball with at the Boys and Girls Club go on to be doctors, to be lawyers, to be politicians, to be true leaders. We've seen what it's done for families who have needed a place for the kids to go. For the kids who couldn't get breakfast at home, so they got breakfast at the Boys and Girls Club. For the inner city kids who on a hot summer like the one we have now were able to go to a lovely camp that could take care of them, keep them safe, provide them with educational and physical activity, and let them swim and have a heck of a good time. So that's what Mark and I grew up with. What we want to do is provide those kind of services to the West Side. We're Manchester boys. We grew up here, we went to school here, we love Manchester. And this was something that we wanted to do to help, to make it better. I hear what people have said about sneaking up on you. And I've got to say, there was no, I apologize for you feeling that way, there was no intent to do that. What we did is we had an idea. We had an idea of how we could make things better for people living on the West Side, particularly for kids, because we think that's the important thing. What the Stebbins family has given to time and time again has been young people. And that's because we want them to have the opportunities that we had. And we were very fortunate to grow up in Manchester and have that opportunity. One of the other opportunities that we had
growing up in Manchester was living in a diverse community. Talked about the French, talked about the Irish, we talked about the Poles. Well, those are all my friends. I spoke a little of each language. It was important to me. I played sports with them all the time. I went to school with them. They're still my good friends. This is who we are. We're not trying to impose anything on anyone, honestly. The reason for this meeting, and the reason that Stebbins felt it was so important to have it, is we want to talk to you. And we know that in big groups like this, sometimes it feels like you're getting talked. But we want to hear from you. That's why we're here. I took down a lot of notes. I've been sitting here taking notes on all the things you've been saying. I heard about the concern of for the construction. Well, we've been in the construction family for many, many generations here in New Hampshire. We know the concerns of that. There's no one who knows it better than we do. And we will make sure that wherever we build it, whether it's here or someone else, you're going to have the comfort that it's going to be a safe site and people will be protected. But more importantly, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to talk to us, like you've done tonight, and we want to talk to you more. Now, someone talked about getting in a room and talking with the abutters and the other people who have concerns. I would like to do that. And I will call some of you, and I will try to find times and places that we can do that. Because that's really what we want. We want to benefit the community. We don't want to impose anything on anyone. This is not, I know I'm talking, and I'm talking a long time, but I heard you. I have a message from you that you want to talk more. But this kind of group is too big. We've got to do it in smaller groups, where we can really interact, where we can have a conversation. And that's what we had hoped to do tonight. If you don't feel it's been that, then let's make one. Let's get the small groups together. Let's have a conversation. Let's deal with your concerns. We're at the very, very, very early part of this. We don't have a 40,000-foot building we're ready to plunk down. We don't know if it's going to be 40,000 feet. What we do know is that there are services that are needed in this community that could use 40,000 feet. We've been talking to people about something between 19,000 feet and 40,000 feet. We're in the design phase. We're in the development stage. We want to talk to everybody. What services do we provide here? I've heard people having concern about the drugs that are being used here. Well, that's what we're trying to help with. We're trying to get the kids a better direction so that they don't end up using drugs. But I want to hear from you what you think will cause increased drugs, because we don't want to do that. We really don't. And we have specific things that you think will cause more drug use in your community. We want to stop that. I'd like to talk to you. I know you may never agree with me, but I'd like to talk to you. And so I hope that coming out of this, we'll have an opportunity. Bob, I want to talk to you. And we will have an opportunity to get together in small groups and have a conversation. I think that's what's needed. And it will not just be me, but it will be other members of the Stebbins family and other members of the leadership, because we really want to work with you. Bob?
And we don't like to talk too, but when we're told this is what's going to happen and we hope to agree, that's not saying the same thing as saying, can we talk about it first? And that's what people want to do, talk about it first.
One of the things I'm concerned about is that you think this is a done deal and we know what we're doing. We know exactly what services we're going to put in there. We know exactly how big it's going to be. We don't.
Well, it's a done deal that something is going to be done. You don't know what you're going to do. You just know that you are going to do it.
But I don't know that anything's going to be done. We've got to raise 17
I'm not talking
million.
about everything. I'm talking about anything.
Anything, yeah. Like, why get the land? Why get the land if you don't know?
Well, what we know, we don't have the land. We don't have the land. We have a contract with the city that says if a whole bunch of things happen, we can buy them. And those whole bunch of things include the kind of conversations we want to have with you.
I mean, honestly, wait, guys, this is not a debate. Can we at least be organized about this? Please, Bob, go ahead.
Several weeks ago, you came here and said, this is what we're going to do for you, and we'll let you pick out the color of the curtains. That's what you did. And now you're saying, oh, we didn't mean that, but that's what you meant. And I love the Boys and Girls Club. I want everyone to have good health care. I will personally deliver lunches to everyone in this city. But there are so many ways to do that, and we're being told this is the only good way. We're being told by a builder that we must build. When we have these existing buildings that we can recycle, reduce, recycle, reuse. Take that $17 million, instead of building a building, feed people, give them health care, do these things efficiently.
Let's talk about that, Bob. I'm going to take just a couple of
And I'm listening to everyone else talk.
Well, no, Bob, I've heard you. You've spoken a lot. You've handed me things. You held signs in my face. I am...
Not your face, sir. I held them in front of you.
Right in front of me, I'm sorry.
But extend the courtesy to me that you want extended to you.
Are you finished? Okay, so I want to give you one example of what the Stebbins family has done, because we do this. One of the things people talked about was the kids not having a way to get their laundry. But we heard that. As a matter of fact, Mayor Ted Gassis sat down with my brother and said, we have a lot of kids in this city who are homeless, who don't have a place to study, who don't have a place to take a shower, who don't have a place to clean their clothes, and don't have clothes. And what my brother and sister-in-law did was they built a place just for that. The Waypoint Center. It's over on the east side. It's not here on the west side. But what it does is exactly what you're talking about these kids need. It's a place for them to go. It's a place for them to wash their clothes, to study. And they are given all of that by us because we want to make it better, not because we want to impose it on the city. Similar things are the camp situation. There was a need for these inner city kids to get time to be out in the woods, in the country, to be playing, to be healthy. And so we sat down with the Boys and Girls Club because we personally knew about their camp fostering and how that served that immediate purpose. And then we found a way to get the money needed to make Camp Foster better and make the lives of those children better. And that's what we're trying to do. We all have fine lives. Our kids all have places like the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA to go. But a lot of people here on the west side don't. So that's what I want to say. I want to say I'm sorry that you feel this way. I do want to talk to you, and your input is going to have an effect on us. So I hope that we can begin that process today, because we're very, very early in this whole process of what is this center going to be? Is this center going to be, and where is it? So I would be glad to organize meetings where any of you would like to contact me. You can do it through the website, the Mark Stebbins Center website, and contact me and say that you would like to have a meeting. Even if you, particularly if you have a group of people who have concerns that they want to talk to me about, I will try to find a way to be in this. Thank you.
Tammy?
Good evening. I hadn't planned on speaking, but I've been struggling to try to put my finger on
why this is so contentious, and I'm listening to both sides. I have many friends who live in this neighborhood who are not at all happy, and I completely agree with them. And then I listen to the principal at the school and talk about the needs of the kids, and I completely understand where you're coming from, and I agree with you. And I think it's really important, which I didn't say my name, I'm sorry. Tammy Simmons Garthwaite. I live in Ward 10. I am a West Side Manchester resident. My family lineage is irrelevant, but I have lived in my 2 homes here on the West Side for 25 years, if that counts for something. I've been trying to figure out where the frustration is, because nobody, I don't think anybody means to speak poorly or diminish the Stebbins family, Boys and Girls Club, YWCA, any of the entities that are doing good things for kids. No one, myself included, not one person is upset with the Stebbins family for wanting to help kids. So where is the frustration? And then I figured it out. You didn't fail them. Amoskeag Health didn't fail them. The city failed them. The city failed this neighborhood because the city did not tell the neighborhood what they were doing. Stebbins family reached out to the city. The city knew, the neighbors didn't. Things were decided. Stebbins knew, Amoskeag Health knew, the city knew, the neighborhood didn't. Neighbors came out at the meeting in July. I don't think it was meant to be so push-offish, but that's how people walked away. Every person pretty much got up and said, we don't want this, or we want more information, or can we please slow this down? The subcommittee decided it was surplus land. It's not surplus land. There is a large community garden sitting there. How can anybody with a straight face say, surplus land? So then, bunches of people go to the aldermanic meeting. I kept track. 8 people spoke in favor. They were all either from city government or affiliated with the project. Nothing wrong with it. They were all in favor. 14 people spoke against. They were all residents of the community who said, if nothing else, please slow the process down and let us help you try to better make this work for the community. We hear that there's all these properties that were looked at. Anybody look at West Side Ice Arena area? There's tons of property up there. I know that they looked at the land next to the dog park, but come on, everybody knows they're not going to build there. What about CMC? Did anybody actually work with the partnership with Catholic Medical Center to see if maybe they could build a building that included parking for them and a space for the kids? And on with others. We've got a senior center that's empty most of the time. The high school's empty most of the time. The schools are empty at the times that the kids need services. I really just don't know that disrupting this neighborhood was the right idea for the city to make. 100% short of one alderman and one who abstained, despite what the community said at the meeting, just voted yes. We don't really care what anybody has to say. People are coming out. It might be a small number of people, but they are coming out and they are saying, we're not happy with this. We don't know if we want this. And the city is failing them. Thank you.
I don't think I can beat that, though. I'm extremely nervous. I'm a resident of the neighborhood for 56 years now. My children went to these schools, I went to these schools, my grandchildren are going to these schools. At first I was like, oh, okay, what's the big deal, right? Because I didn't come to any of these meetings until now. But now listening to the residents, and then growing up in the era that I grew up in, why can't we use what we have? Why do you have to put a building in that small little green space there? Why? Why not go to McGregor Street? I drive by empty lots. Put your damn building there. Or put a high school there and then redo West so the kids can walk there. I walked to West when I was in high school. Guess what? All these kids need to walk to West. Yeah. A lot of them need it. And there's nothing wrong with you having City here walking these kids in groups to West High School. They all need to walk there. I work actually for a nonprofit that was voted #1 place to work in New Hampshire. I worked in this school for 13 years as a paraprofessional. I know these kids need this. They need the mental health services, they need the family. I know they need this. I actually work with the top 2 to 3% of kids that need mental health services. I go into their homes and I meet their families. Right here in Manchester, I meet their families. We can serve them in the building we have. Don't upset these residents who probably want to help these kids, but you came in. Like the program that I facilitate is graphic facilitation. It provides 100% transparency to the families and their children so they know what's being presented to them. They see it because I write it on the board for them to see it. The way you guys came in, from what I'm hearing, isn't very respectful to the people that have lived here their whole life. And I live right up the street for 56 years. I love this neighborhood. Mr. Ransdell can contend to that. He will tell you that I love this neighborhood and I love these children and I love these families that need help. But why tick off these people and do it underhandedly? Why not go to West and fix it and make that your community center? And why don't you, since they're, SAU's over there and half the school's empty, because we don't have as many kids going to that school. At one time, there was like 2,000 kids or something going to that school. Use it. That empty lot on McGregor Street, build them a new high school. Then you're gonna make everyone happy. And you know what? I didn't even read off this. That came off the top of my head.
There were a few questions that were emailed to us, and then a few that were written down. So I have a few to be able to try to move through as best we can, acknowledging that I'm not sure that all the questions that are being asked have answers just yet. But here are some that we've received. So one of the reasons that this was given as a location in West Manchester was of economically disadvantaged tracts that were drawn from the U.S. Census. Can you let them know where those are and how many people live in them? What's the source of that information?
Okay, so the census tract information is public information. That is actually part of the handout that was on your on the table, those frequently asked questions. And so I don't have the information on how many people live in them, but it's it's very available on the U.S. Census Bureau. But the three most disadvantaged census tracts are on the west side. So, and that is right where we are. So.
Next question. Scuttlebutt has it, the city's Lands and Buildings Department was approached regarding a parcel in the neighborhood of Rock Rimmon, but the department refused to sell the property. Is there truth to this?
We don't know anything about that. We do not look at anything over there.
An argument was made at the alderman's meeting regarding the size of the planned building not being suitable for any of the alternatives that were considered, which begs a few questions. How was the size of the building determined? I'll pause. It's a two-parter. How was because I believe the number that's been given to this point is an estimate of roughly 40,000, although Hank said it could be 24. So how is that number estimated?
Right, so that is just an estimate. We don't know what that might actually be because it really depends on what services will be needed and what nonprofits might be wanting to be in the building. So we were really looking at what is the potential for what could be needed. But we are looking at anything between, as Hank said, 19,000 to 40,000. So that is just an estimate. We needed a place to start having a conversation. So that is not something written in stone. I just want everybody to know that, okay?
We've talked about Amoskeag and Greater Manchester Boys and Girls Club being anchor tenants of this conversation, but you had said before that there was an ongoing conversation to assess whether other nonprofits would be a part of this. To some of the questions about what different programs could be available, could you at least describe what the process is right now of what that conversation looks like and what that outreach looks like? What's the process?
Sure. So, we're working with a group called Nonprofit Center Network, and they have surveyed several different nonprofits that provide services that were part of the community needs assessment. So they surveyed and they're interviewing them, and we're gathering all that data to see whether or not those organizations want to be a part of this. They have the capacity to be a part of this, and what it might cost them to be a part of this, and as far as square footage, space, and things like that. So we are in the process of that right now. So we just don't have that ready to share yet, because we're just in the process of gathering that and analyzing all of that.
Okay. Why was the decision made to have a central location instead of separate locations for separate functions or programs?
I think it's more of a cost-saving measure, really.
Can I take a minute and just answer that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That would be great. Can I start to do that? One of the things that we've talked about today is using existing buildings and being efficient in our use of space. One of Mark's big things was we have hundreds of social service and health service agencies that are supposed to be helping kids. And each of them wants to have their own building, wants to have their own back office, wants to have their own employees that are doing intake, and all of those things. That's costing a lot of money. That costs a large portion of what these agencies and service providers spend. What Mark's goal was to find a way to bring them together so that they could be more efficient in providing students services to young people, to students, to children. That's why the concept of bringing in a number of agencies to one building came about. And one of the things that was discussed earlier was the Navigator program, which is that when someone comes in looking for services, we have someone who would meet him or her or the family and talk about what services they needed and be able to direct them to those services and make sure they had contact with those services so they could get them. And that's an important part of the concept that we're working on. We know that there are lots of families and there are lots of students and there are lots of other people who don't know what they need. They don't know how to ask. And we're hoping we can provide a place, a community center, that can help those of them understand what services are available and then get them. So that's why it's all intended to be in one building. And it's a very concerted thing. And we think that by doing that, we're going to direct a lot more money that we and all of you give to these social services and health service agencies to provide services so that they go to providing services rather than providing bricks and mortars or other staff, support staff.
Okay. The next question, this might actually be a good one for Chris. It's an argument was made in order to provide so-called wraparound services. A location close to schools was needed. Can you explain what that means and how it benefits? Chris, do you mind taking that one about wraparound, what that means?
So wraparound is a term that's used in both a very strict way in some settings and in a very kind of loose or casual way in other settings. There's an evidence-based protocol for implementing wraparound services for kids with severe mental illness and other disabilities that is a very structured kind of program. But in the nonprofit field, they often talk about wrapping services around children and families. So wherever the person is getting access to services, try and bring services into them so that they don't have to go out and seek them. So I'm trying to give two definitions, because if you work in the mental health or education or one of these other fields, you'll say, nope, that's an evidence-based protocol. And if you work in more a general field, people will just talk about bringing services to people. So that's really what's meant by wraparound in the context we meant.
Perfect, thank you. Janine, I'll bring it back for a few. Has any thought been given to how many parking bays or spaces might be needed for this project?
Turn on the microphone.
It is on, it's not working very well, I'm sorry.
So the question was about parking bays, and we don't know that yet. That will be part of the design and the process of figuring out who's in the building and what is needed, how many people will be walking. That's part of the work. Again, we keep talking about this next 6 months. This is our opportunity to have our conversations, as Hank said, with everybody. So that will be part of that.
There's been a number put out in some of the conversation about this project, $17 million. There's some confusion perhaps about whether it's public or private funds, taxpayer dollars. Can you clarify what these dollars are and this project itself?
Sure. So we plan to be raising those funds from individual donors, from foundations, both local and national, from companies, and we will also be applying for some federal funding. So if we're so lucky to get that. So that is where, and of course when you raise funds, you make a plan, and you're in charge of 50% of that, right? You do the ask, the donor's in charge of whether or not they're going to give that. So that's the plan for where those funds will come from.
Thank you.
How much is expected to be federal funding?
We don't know yet.
You don't have an idea
Is there an
of what
application
grants are going after? Or?
Right, we're,
is there a process that you have to?
There's a process, we're in the process of, identifying some of these, and we need to have some of the program done before we know what we can go after. So when I say the program, I mean, how big the building, what services are going to be there, all of that stuff.
Do you have a goal of like 50% federally funded or 20%, 0%?
No, not that much.
You don't goal of 0%. That's not the goal, right?
I'm sorry?
The goal is not 0%, right? You don't have a goal to raise this all privately.
Well, if that is how it comes in, yeah.
We would. But that's not a goal. The goal is not zero. You say you don't know the goal, but it's a non-zero goal.
I think it might be too early to know.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I'm hearing. So I don't think that they've put the plan together because they don't know the price
Right,
tag.
but the plan's a non-zero number. It'll be greater than 0%.
If there are federal funds available, we would like to apply for them.
I'd like to bring up Mike Harrington for a moment, who is someone who sort of as part of this project understands some of the logistics of the process, which I think has been a central part of some of the questions. And Mike, if you don't mind, I just want to throw a couple of these questions to you. One is about, and I think there was some concern expressed about an RFP. You may just have to project. I'm just not sure that's working very well.
Yeah.
In this process, why was there not a request for purchase when there was an approach made to, I think it was the Lands and Buildings Committee of the City of Manchester? There's not an RFP in this process. Why not?
Right. So we were never asked, or it was never asked of us by the city to, develop an RFP, or for the city to develop an RFP that then we would respond to. So the process, which probably most everybody in the room doesn't know, and we were learning as well as we were going, is that you approach Lands and Buildings with a request, and that's what we did. There was no, and if you talk to any of your aldermen or to the mayor, we went to Lands and Buildings first, and believe me, there was nothing underhanded in what we did. There was this idea of doing something dirty was not anywhere near our mind at all. And I can tell you, just to back up a minute, there was really an extensive search. And I know a lot of you may not think that, probably because we didn't do a very good job of communicating it. But I was on the subcommittee along with Mike Reed to find the piece of real estate, as well as some others. We started talking with people, everybody. There are landowners and building owners that I cannot divulge because they wouldn't want anybody knowing that they were even considering possibly selling their property. So there's a high degree of confidentiality that goes on when you're approaching people that really aren't expecting to sell their property. So I wouldn't want to tell everybody in this room, the individuals or the companies or the organizations that we approach, But I can tell you, I think openly, that West High School was considered. There's no question about it. I mean, you've got I graduated from West High School in 1980. So I know the property, I know the location, I know it's underutilized. And it just did not make sense from a financial point of view. Plus, we're also still dealing with the school board, which is still trying to determine what they want to do with the schools. So it would have been a much longer, elongated process. But it's a huge facility. It's 270,000 square feet with multiple acres. And yes, someday, if they ever decide to redevelop West High School, it'll turn into something, and hopefully it will turn into something magnificent that the West Side can be very, very proud of, because as an alumni of West High School, I want to be proud of it as well. But it's just one of those things where timing isn't working. So backing up to the RFP process. If any of you read in the paper, most recently, the two RFPs that went out for the Harnett lot, parking lot, right downtown on the east side of Manchester, and also the Pearl Street lot. Those were RFPs that were issued by the City of Manchester because the City of Manchester thought that those properties were underutilized and approached developers with an RFP. So it was the city proactively approaching developers because there's a need for affordable housing in the city. In this case, it was in the reverse. We had a need. The city wasn't coming to us and saying, we've got a great location for a community center for you. We were trying to find a great location for a community center. It just so happened over a process of elimination and time, and we looked at Wolf Park, right? We looked at places that are over by 2nd Street. We did look at the dog park at Bass Island, which is, as one person said, as we found out, we didn't know originally that that's undevelopable. So you just can't do it. But we took a look at all of these potential locations, plus others, CMC, you know, and other organizations, as I said earlier, that I can't divulge. This one came up as a target. We found out through the tax records that it was owned by Parks and Rec. We approached Lands and Buildings with a request to purchase the property, which was all up and up. It's part of the regs that you go through. And then Lands and Buildings made a decision to forward that, approve it, forwarding it to full Board of Mayor and Alderman approval. Now, I will say, in that process, and I was the person that actually brought it to the committee's attention, I was approached after the Lands and Buildings Committee and had a dialogue with one of the neighbors, I don't know if she's here tonight, but a very nice woman that I had a discussion with because I was one of the members that actually presented this location to the Lands and Buildings Committee. And she was concerned that the neighbors hadn't been notified. And also Joe Kelly Lavasser expressed a concern that the neighbors hadn't been notified. You know, it's like light dawns on Marblehead, right? And that's what happened. So we were like, I went to Janine and the committee and we said, you know what? We didn't go to the neighbors. You know, but it wasn't required of us to go to the neighbors. So it was no disrespect. It was not, I will say it was inadvertent, but I agree that better communications could have happened, and you're right, we could have done a door-knocking campaign, but I can honestly tell you, we weren't thinking door-knocking campaign. We were just thinking, we'll go to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen will, you know, vet it, and it will be part of the public process because it's all live and taped and all that good stuff. So there wasn't anything underhanded in the way in which we did it. We thought we were doing it by all the proper steps. And as far as the RFP process goes, it's, in this particular case, what I have found in my experience, and I've been selling commercial real estate for over 20 years now, the city generally would develop an RFP because they have identified a need. And if they had identified a need for a community center on the west side of Manchester for that particular land, it would have been an RFP process, and it would have been publicly notified to anybody who would like to build, and it's specific to a community center on the west side of Manchester. I have heard of no other organization that is willing to put the amount of money And the amount of effort into putting a community center here on the west side of Manchester, just so happens it's that particular piece of land, anywhere. So I think you would have gotten one response. And the one response would have been from us. And we went even over and above that by doing a fair market analysis from a reputable residential broker, because I'm on the commercial side of the business, I don't do residential real estate, who came up with a fair market analysis that we all determined through the board that we would pay the city of Manchester for the land instead of asking them to gift it to us. And if you've read recently with the 2 parking lots, there's a lot of ins and outs with that, but they're not getting anything for that. Well, the city of Manchester is getting the parking replaced and a garage being built. But there's no other contribution, and that's happened time and time again. So we've done all the proper steps. We think we've been above board. I'm sorry if I'm talking too loudly, it's just I'm trying to project. And it just is, so anyway, so that was the process, and that's why it didn't happen, but absolutely guaranteed that we looked at a number of sites. And as Hank said, we don't have the land yet. We haven't bought the land. There's a good possibility, there's a possibility, not a good possibility, I hope. There's a possibility that we could find contamination, it doesn't suit our purposes, it doesn't work for whatever reason, and it remains the way it is today, and we'll try to find something somewhere else. We are literally not trying to force this down any of the neighbors' throats.
Mike, as a quick follow-up, there was a concern that was sort of publicly stated about the impact of a project like this on property values of the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just wondering, could you address what some are concerned could be a drop in 10 to 30% of overall value from something like this?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, and you know what? That is, at least from my point of view, right now, and I know you're hearing this from me, and I'm on the side of the committee, but it's a bit specious. You really need to have somebody, if somebody's making that argument that your property values are going to be dropped or be decreased because of this particular project, you really have to have somebody do an analysis for you. In my opinion, the only way that property values are diminished if it's a nuisance use, in my experience. So if you're talking about, gas stations that are open all night, you're talking about, a dump site, you're talking about really things that impact negatively the community. This is going to impact the community positively. You do searches all the time. When you look for a home for yourself, or if you're looking for an apartment, especially if you only have one car. When I grew up on the west side of Manchester for a period of my life, we had one car. We had a one-car family. My father took that to work. And it would be nice to be able to walk to these services. So you look for walkability. You're willing to pay a little bit extra for that because it's walkable. And then number 2, you look for services. You look for good schools. You look for community centers. You look for health care. And if all of that is in a certain area, that's not going to bring your property values down, in my opinion. But again, if you really are concerned about it, you ought to hire somebody to study it, take a look at it, and try to determine if a Boys and Girls Club is going to be a positive for your property values or a negative. That's all I could say about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
I have a property question, so I figured he's up there.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, and you can say that, I think these are both city-owned properties, so it's not like you'd be divulging a property owner, because I can completely appreciate that.
Sure.
Did anybody look at the West Side Ice Arena area? And I was told by somebody from the city that Manchester Housing Authority has property up on Kimball Street, as does Parks. I believe Parks and Rec owns lands up on Kimball Street, but that Manchester Housing didn't want to give up any green space. So, yeah, you're asking these people to give up green space. So I'm wondering what the story, if there's any truth to it, because Janine just said, no, they didn't, nothing up on near Rock Rimmon. So I'm confused. This is the kind of dynamic that's making people very uneasy. Is you're hearing this is a property that Manchester Housing doesn't want to give any green space up. But nobody's asking if we want to give up our green space, and the city just is buggling it up.
Yeah. Very good points. And I've been doing this a lot of years, and I've worked with developers. I only own my own house. I'm not a developer. All of us are volunteering our time. So I can give you my opinion, and that is, well, I can tell you definitely, we really did not look at anything, or we weren't approached to look at anything at Rock Rimmon. If they have something that could work, I'm sure we would consider it. But I will say that in general, there's no perfect site. You know, you do the best you can with what you find, and you try to make it work. And that's what Barry, through a volunteer effort right now, is helping us with. But ultimately, the architect and the planners, and when you go to city planning, and you get in maybe those small groups that Hank was talking about, and I've been involved in charrettes all across the city. You know, the steps that have just been painted over at by the river at the boat launch. I was on the committee to, you know, that helped that along. So there's a lot of these little efforts that are going on along the city to make the city better. I will tell you this, personally, one of the best parts I know of is along the Piscataqua Riverway. Yep. I use that bike path a couple times a month. I don't ride out here every week, but often. And it's great to have that in your backyard. I think also that will be a complement to what is trying to be built here, because you've got bike trails, you've got walking paths. All of these things are going to be very good and positive for the people that live there, your tenants that live there, and for, you know, for this area of the city. So, but anyway, and the ice skating arena, that never came up. I know I met with Leo Lafreniere from planning, myself and Mike Reed, and we've had other discussions sidebar. What properties would you guys, would the city recommend we take a look at? Because that was part of the search process. West Side Arena never came up. I didn't even know it would be available. But
thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I know a lot of information has been exchanged, a lot of ideas and thoughts. There may be new questions or different questions that have been raised. I would invite you to do a couple of things, as I recognize we've actually gone past time. One would be to remember that email for continuing the dialogue into this group, info@markstebbinscommunitycenter.org. And secondly, there are sheets, I think, on every table with a pen to be able to leave your email behind so that we can do outreach to you and keep you posted on things that are happening. I think we'll be in touch with next steps of what's going to happen from Hank's request for some meetings to the next steps of the project and what proposal development might end up looking like. But thank you all very much for being here. Many thanks to our school district friends and Parkside for allowing us this opportunity to be here tonight. We appreciate the passion of this conversation, and I thank all of you for being here. I hope you have a great night, great rest of your week. Take care.
Yes.